Hi everyone, welcome to the lecture summary of week 4, and this week we are going to focus on the marketing analytics and customer insight chapter 4. So this week I would like to reflect on the two important topics that we have discussed in this week's lecture. The first one is marketing information system and the second one is marketing research process. So first of all, the marketing information system. What is that? So essentially, marketing information system, it's a software application, or we can say that it's a combination of tools and technologies that enables businesses to assess their information need, also develop the needed information, and analyze the collected information. Now, when it comes to collecting information or develop the needed information for analysis, organizations actually focus on a lot of sources such as marketing intelligence. They also rely on market research, and also they rely on internal data. So they collect data from variety of sources, and then what do they do is they mine those data. They try to make sense of those data using variety of analytical techniques. So organizations use sophisticated software applications in order to analyze those data and then take necessary actions based on the findings of those data. And that's what marketing analytics is all about. It's very important for businesses these days to use marketing analytics or marketing information system, just because consumers generate huge amount of data from variety of touch points, starting from the traditional retail store to the social media platforms. Everywhere consumers are leaving their footprints, and these footprints are extremely important for businesses to make informed decisions and to understand the needs, wants, and customers. So if we talk about business such as Netflix or Stan or Amazon or eBay, all these businesses are master in terms of using marketing analytics. So their sophisticated analytical tools helps them to understand the consumer's browsing behavior as well as consumer needs and preferences. Based on that, they update their product and services accordingly. And also, I'm sure all of you have been hearing about the concept of big data recently, how organizations can actually use big data to once again to get even closer to the customers. So the concept of big data once again is related to collecting information from variety of sources and then using analytical tools to make sense of those information. But of course, those organizations need to be strategic about what kind of information they are collecting, because there is just way too much information out there. So that's where the role of the analytics comes into play, which would help businesses to only collect the information that is useful for the businesses, and then helps them to develop strategies based on the collect information. So we talked a fair bit about the marketing information system and marketing analytics. Another important component that we have discussed in our last week lecture was the process of conducting market research. So when it comes to collecting data in order to make business decisions or in order to solve a certain business problem, marketing research is widely used by the businesses. So for example, if you are trying to understand the consumer perceptions or attitude towards a newly developed product by your organization, in that case there is not much substitute to marketing research or the good old market research. So there are a number of ways organizations can actually undertake market research. So when it comes to, for example, holistically, if we divide the marketing research concepts, so there are two ways to conduct research. I'm sure you're already familiar with these two ways. One is qualitative marketing research, another one is the quantitative marketing research. So the qualitative marketing research usually involves a very limited number of research participants, and they try to obtain subjective information from the research participants through focus group discussions or interviews. Whereas the quantitative research actually involves usually involves more than 100 research participants, and they use statistical tools and techniques to make sense of the data collected from the research participants. So these are the two research approach usually followed by the businesses in order to conduct the research. But in holistically though, the process of conducting the research is a four-step process. So the first of all, it's about identifying the research problem. Okay, so it's about identifying what problem you are trying to solve. What is your research questions, or what is your research objective? The next one is obviously developing the research plan for collecting information. So it's about identifying how would you collect the required data to address your research question or to solve your research problem. So organizations actually use variety of sources in order to collect data. So usually they use primary sources or secondary data sources. So the primary sources usually refers to conducting interviews or focus group discussions or surveys to collect data, whereas the secondary sources refers to focus on secondary information sources such as government databases or the information that all government reports or the published report, market intelligence reports, so the information that are already out there. So based on your research problem, for example, if you're trying to find out customer attitude towards a newly developed program or newly developed product, in that case, primary research technique, the survey or something like a survey or focus group discussion would be the way to go. Whereas basically if you are trying to find any information about a new country or a new suburb and what are the dynamics, economic and social dynamics are, in that case maybe the secondary sources would be beneficial for you. So it entirely depends on your research problem. So the third step is, so the first two step is identifying the research problem. The second step is obviously developing the research plan. So you identify exactly what data sources you would use in order to address your research problem. And the third one is obviously implementation of that research plan. So you carry out the focus group discussion or you carry out those survey, and then finally the fourth step is interpret. So once you collect the data from the survey, then you interpret your results and things like that. So these are usually the four steps that is usually undertaken by the businesses. Now there is a lot more into it. In terms of the data collection techniques, there are a number of ways actually you can collect data. So for example, the primary data can be collected using as I have mentioned, it can be collected using a variety of sources such as the surveys. It can also be collected through other means. Apart from surveys and focus group discussions, organizations frequently undertake another method which is known as the experiments. So how consumers behave in a control settings, like obviously based on the in a particular control setting. For example, a toy company might want children to might get the children to play with their newly invented toys. So and that will just observe how children react to the new toys and different features of the toys. So that's a controlled so usually consumers participate in this research in a controlled environment. So that's an experimental research method that a lot of the business organization undertake, especially the large multinational businesses. So apart from that, apart from the experimental research design, there is another one which is ethnographic research as well. So for example, when businesses follow the customers in their natural habitat, for example, if you wish to see how consumers undertake their grocery shopping just by following them in in their natural habitat. So when consumers undertake the purchases of their regular groceries, you just follow them and you observe their behavior, and based on that you design your product and services. So observational technologies or ethnography is another important way of conducting or collecting primary data. But when it comes to the secondary data, organizations use variety of sources such as uh, internal sources, the company's annual report, their profit and loss statements, etc. They use government publications, the periodicals and books, and also the commercial data. So variety of sources. So depending on usually the secondary research tend to be cheaper and easier to collect information, but then again maybe it's not as recent that you would like. So primary information is harder to obtain because it requires you to implement that research process, but obviously it might provide you more useful information and it might help you to solve the problem that you have identified during your research planning phase. So these are the two main elements that we have discussed. The research is a fascinating world. I consider myself as a researcher, and so when it comes to the world of research, for example, my research is based on quantitative research. So I usually conduct surveys to collect data, and also apart from that I also rely a lot on the content analysis. So I gather data from social media platforms, and then I undertake content analysis and network analysis to see how consumers interact with different nodes and different within a certain network. But so there are lots of research methodologies that are available, but at the end of the day, it's for you to determine which one you are going to follow. There is just no right or wrong formula. There is always this debate between, okay, the qualitative research is better because it just helps you to gain that in-depth perspective, but then again the quantitative research, there are advocates for quantitative research who says that no, because it's easier to generalize the results just because of the larger sample size. So lot of debate around the research philosophies, but at the end of the day, it's about selecting a research method which works for you. And you don't really need to go in there that which one is better. It's about knowing what are the options that are available for you. So once again, just to recap, we have got marketing information system, which is a combination of tools and technology and helps an organization to develop assess their information need, develop the needed information, and also analyze the information. And apart from that, we have also talked about the marketing research process, which is a 4 steps process. So identify the research problem, developing a research plan for data collection. Then we have briefly reflected on various kinds of data collection methodologies that are available, and finally it's about analyzing those data. So that's pretty much about it. And yeah, so I just wanted to, once you listen to the lecture, then maybe you will find the reflection as a little bit of reinforcement. So this is not here, these reflections are not there to replace the lectures. This is just to give you an additional elements into, or this is an additional materials which is there to supplement the lecture. So, and also I wanted to remind you that I have uploaded a separate recording file explaining the marketing part 1 of the marketing plan assignment. So remember, please note that the marketing plan assignment, the first part of your marketing plan assignment, which is essentially the situation analysis, which is due very soon. So I would request you to go through the assessment requirements and then start working on your assignment, because it's about time. It's due in 2 weeks time, so it's about time that you start working on your assignment, and let your tutor or myself know if you are having any issues. So have a good weekend everyone, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you so much. Bye bye.